I had given blood, and it came back where the liver enzymes were elevated. And so that was the first time that about 18 years ago, that we realized something was going on. Originally they said that I would probably go to transplant within about 10 years. Fortunately, I made it much beyond the 10 years. I made it 18 years before I needed it. And actually, for most of those 18 years, I was very healthy. At the very end is where I started to get quite jaundiced and yellow and very tired, and obviously it was going downhill, and could hardly stand up at times. And my wife, more than anything, let it be known that there was the option of living donor transplants. For me, I really wasn't interested in doing that because I really didn't have an interest in putting somebody else in harm's way. I was happy just to stay on the cadaver list. But the more it got closer and the sicker that I got, I realized that that might be an opportunity for me to live. And the biggest question we always got was, can they do that? I didn't know they could do that. So I had to learn that they gave, at least in Nebraska, they did it a little differently. They had a unique procedure that they did where they took just a quarter, approximately, of the donor's liver, which made it much safer for the donors. And that new procedure that they were doing made me feel a little more comfortable with the risk-benefit ratio for the donor. That's one reason why we went to Nebraska Medical Center, is because they have that capability.
Our families go to the same church. Both of his sons have been in the youth ministry that I lead. The senior pastor mentioned that that was something that was needed, could be a possible living donor for Russ, that he needed a transplant regardless of, what was going on. Who'd ever heard of somebody being alive and giving part of an organ away, a major organ? It doesn't make sense that it would work, but it does. There's always been something inside me that has had a desire or a push to do something self-sacrificing in a big way. Not to point to me and say, look how good I am, but to point to God and to say, look how good He is, look how big He is. It's almost like I was prepared for it when it happened, because I'd been, in my mind and in my heart, worked myself up to that point where I was ready to do it regardless of what the situation was. Trusting Russ, saying, this is one of the best places in the United States, in the world, to go get this, get a transplant done.
I realized that if I did take this gift that he was willing to give, that the liver that I would have possibly gotten could go to somebody else and save that person's life. So really we got two great benefits out of the one gift that he gave.
The need has arisen because of the shortage of cadaveric organs. About 10% of our patients who are listed for liver transplantation will die every year because of a shortage of organs, which means we have to turn to an alternative resource to try and get our patients transplanted. And that's where living donor liver transplantation attempts to fill that gap. Historically speaking, we have tended to take the larger portion of the donor's liver, and that would be their right side of their liver. And that provides, that takes about 60, sometimes 65% of that donor's liver mass, and that is what is transplanted into the recipient to be able to provide enough functioning liver mass for the recipient. However, the problem with that, which is obvious right at the outset, is that you're taking a large chunk of liver from this donor and hence putting them at somewhat of a risk. Now, while that risk is quite low, it is still real. And that's where we have decided to change our approach and to change the way the operation is done, so that we can now take a smaller piece from the donor, make the operation safer for them, while still providing the recipient with an opportunity to get transplanted and to survive. And so we are now taking the left lobe from the donor to be able to make it work in the recipient.
We do a lot of preparation beforehand. We have a consistent team that does the operations. We sit and we go over the case and we look at the anatomy and we study the anatomy, so we try as much as possible to know what's coming up. A lot of it just has to do with teamwork. We're used to working with each other. Oftentimes we can anticipate each other's moves, and we think that makes it really safe for the donor. We think that being very thoughtful about it, being very deliberate in our actions, being very careful to review what has happened with our past cases, learn from our experience, we really think that we're going to be able to bring this to the forefront on a regular basis. To be a leader in this field is very exciting and show that it is doable is very exciting. If we can lead the way in looking at donor safety, we think that that's a benefit to our patients and to the transplant community. Change happens because people are willing to take a risk and be innovative, and I think that this will carry on into the future. It's realistic. You have to protect the people who otherwise would be hurt by this, and that's why we've made the changes that we have.
I wasn't fearful at all about going through the procedure because I knew I was in the best hands I could be in. The doctors there, of course, made me feel very comfortable. My wife told me immediately when I woke up that, hey, your eyes are wider. And so that was the first time that I knew that, maybe things were going to work out and I was going to be okay. When she said, you look better. You don't look as yellow. I feel better than I have in years. In fact, I didn't even know how bad I was getting for a while because it happened so slowly. And then all of a sudden you hit the brick wall. But now I feel great. I haven't felt better. The liver's working great. It has never had any problems. This liver has functioned perfectly since the day that they put it in.
I think the biggest thing that I received from this is the satisfaction in knowing that I did something to help save somebody else's life. If I had to do it again, I would do it again. If you didn't take the chance, nothing happens. Nothing changes. But you're taking that chance that you have a chance to change everything.
I wake up every morning, and see my wife and my kids every day. And I'm much more thankful than I ever have been, just in life in general. It's really kind of made me stop and think about things in a different way and approach things in a different way. You're basically dead, then you get a new life almost overnight. It really takes your breath away.